nyaya iri pango Jets ndeyekudai so. All I can say, rume rimwe harikombi churu, number one. For this change to come, Ango Jets, inoda zvinhu zvakawanda kuti change iyoyo ive successful. Ini failure yandobeliever yaitwa with all the leaders vaexista paopposition till today ndeyekuti they are using one method, right? They rely with one strategy. I'll give you one example of my own field, Ango Jets kuti street pole yari apa munozoona ramira Ango Jets ramira rati twim road ralighter road pipe munogona kuriona rango lighter road chete, but kwarinenge richibva pasa apa kuti risadona zvinenge zvaitwa mukati memuya pane zvinhu zvakawanda zvinenge zvaitwa pasi pipe, ma-anger bolts, grout, ma-base plates, ma-cleats, so many things to say, right? So I believe kuti as we are right now, we need to explore more methods. Vanoziva chirungu zvisatinyanyi kuchiziva zvedu vanoti methodology. I think opposition leadership yedu kubva pana the late takanyanya kuinvesta muma lawyers chete tikaignore zvinhu zvakawanda zviri key kuti struggle inde kumberi. So what I'm saying is, can we learn from the past? Can we build something chine vanhu chine ma different characters? Muri kunzwa Ango Jets? Chine ma different characters. Umwe noumwe ane role yaanenge achiita. Kwete kuti toti nokuti imimi Ango Jets na Titus na Ru muri kuona kuti mese munofana kukwana pa top 3 saka hatina choice sezvo murimi muripo tofana kungokuisai but muchipresenta chinhu 1. Izvozvo we need to move away from that. Tinoda vheko ine macomponents akakwana Ango Jets. Kukwira gomo munoziziva Ango Jets, we need a 4x4 inoloka div kana kukwira panhu panonetsa. So I think these are some of the things today zvatakufana kuchiti isu sema citizens tinofana kuita self introspection, totarisa kuti pane vanhu vacho vatiinawo vatiri kutarisira vacho, uyu anotipa chii, uyu angatipa chii, uyu ongabva angatipa chii, sabukudhomisa anotipa chii. I believe kuti tikabuilda chinhu ichocho takadaro Ango Jets chinogona kutiisa pane imwe stage iri better than zvatakaita kana zviripo, because ini ndiri kuona sekuti as long as tichiramba tichicentralize kungoti because Move Titus ndo vakanga vari co-host panapa, hatitangirepo panapa Ango Jets, ipo pano patiri panapa padhujera yedu panapa kuti tikati because Move Titus is one of the founding co-host, saka totongofana kumeka sure kuti apina mutop 3 tisati tatarisa kuti okay tiri kuda chii nechii patop 3 yacho, we will lose the match again. Saka ndinoona sokuti let's start to rethink kuti what type of people we need to build this component. Perhaps we will be on another stage, because I believe we got good different characters. Some of them that are even ignored. But wachitova neimwe certain strength ne contribution inogona kusheka chinhu kana kumova chinhu to another stage. Then ndoda kusiya ndichicorrecta zvangu pandambonzwa naMasima kutaura in the beginning there was a word and what. Mavhesi aya ari 2. Genesis iri kutaura nezveuniverse, then John achizouya ari kutaura nezveeternity, nezveuwepo hwemwanakomana womunhu. So in conclusion, we need to look what type of leaders who suit to move the vehicle. Many thanks.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, whatever. Right. Can I have Rue to come through, and then I'll have Sabuk Dobbs, and then Owen. Let's go with that order.
Thanks, Uncle Jed. Hope muribo. Hope mnema freeze it kwa muri.
I
Hi,
am
hi, hi.
cooking. I'm in an oven. I'm cooking. Yeah.
Yeah, kana nini natomboti ndiyozogara pasi because yo kubika kwacho kuri kutonetsa. It's like hard work. But I want to build up on some of the things that Masi touched on, and I think Ongab also was touching on this because I think he said he will bring back more thoughts of how we go about doing this. Because the question you're asking here is opposition and myth of organic change, rethinking political responsibility. And when you did your monologue today, you spoke to this conversation about citizenry and the citizen participation. Now, I think it was yesterday when I spoke about abuse and identifying. I think that we've never been able to really identify what is our problem. If we were to have a discussion today, if you were to change the title and say, what is our problem in Zimbabwe? I guarantee you that it is going to cause a lot of havoc, moderator stress, because people won't be able to agree on what our problem is. So first things first is we all need to come into agreement of what is this problem that we have. Yeah. And then once we've done that, we also have to acknowledge, and many people have spoken about this, the whole idea of consent, right? We have to acknowledge what role have we played in all this. But Masi touched on, she briefly mentioned about the elite. She briefly mentioned about problem posing as a solution to say that currently we have what are called the elites. Our problem is not only ZANU PF, but those even that are in opposition that are considered, we will class them as the elite. Why is that? Because often they come to us people and they impose on us and they make the assumption that we, the people, do not understand what our problem is from an individual level. So they now try to come and tell us, Kuti Iwewe, this is your problem. But my problem that I face as a Zimbabwean in the diaspora is completely different. Kunemunhu ari kumusha is completely different to someone who's in the high density, is completely different to someone in the low density. Like that has to just be understood. Then you've got different categories. Someone who's in their 50s, 60s, 70s, completely different struggles that they're facing in comparison to maybe somebody who's in their 20s. Men are facing different problems to women. Then we've got intersectionalities, like we've got our disabled in the community. And even in the disabled in the community, not all of them can be brushed with the same stroke. So, in a case where you've got all these different dimensions, when we're talking about the problem posing solution, it's that someone comes in and says, I want to open up a dialogue. Let's all be in agreement with identifying what our problem is. And in that dialogue, there is representation from all walks of life. It's not a chamisa, a bite, ngaruvume coming and telling you and educating you, but instead, even if the person that comes in to start this dialogue, they might come with their own idea, but their own idea can change in the process. Because that person is not coming to impose, but is coming to work with you. We haven't had that kind of, and I don't know if I would even call it leadership. We haven't had that. Even when we have this the dialogue here, Our dialogue, very little is it back and forth, building up on each other's ideas. But munhu wese ari kuda kuti inini ndinzwe ndini ndine ma-ideas atori bo. My ideas are more superior than the next person. That's why often you find that we argue over personal opinions. That someone has their own idea, but because you yourself you don't agree with the view of that person, you will immediately go on the defense and on the attack rather than being okay to recognize that we all share different views. So, in our differences, how do we then find a solution that fits all of us? We are not there yet. And then I just wanted to quickly read because once I read this for me, I found it really powerful. Because in the book, with the Gene Sharp book, right, everyone often refers to the 198 methods of resistance. So this is the book From Dictatorship to Democracy. There's a section because he goes through examples to say, okay, if you want to remove a dictator, there are these ways that, of course, have been done before. One of them being a guerrilla warfare, uh some have been coups, elections, and international help. And he mentions in one thing that is like a common denominator in all of those is that if you use any of those methods to try and remove a dictator, the one that will come after that is usually much worse or is not as competent as you would hope, especially when it comes to elections often. But for the most part, you're going to find they're much worse than the one that you had before. And I think we can attest to that, right? Like you hear people then start to reference to say, oh, things were better with Ian Smith. Was Ian Smith came Mugabe. Mugabe came Nangago. And you might say that after each one of those, however way they were all taken out, you had the guerrilla warfare and then you had the coup, but there's been worse. It's been getting worse as we go along. So he speaks now to the four truths, and he says this: when one wants to bring down a dictatorship more effectively and with the least cost, then one has four immediate tasks. One must strengthen the oppressed population themselves in their determination, self confidence, and resistance skills. If you ask an average Zimbabwean today, do you have resistance skills? Majority of them don't. Because as I referenced earlier to the statement or the submission I made yesterday, I spoke about abuse. That majority of our brothers and sisters, including ourselves, including myself, we're so comfortable with the fact that we are abused that we do not come against our abuser. This is the reason why we saw the issue in Kariba. These people complained, but they did not do what was necessary when they saw there was a problem to then insist we are not going. Now, it's not their fault, of course, but it's just to show that our people's voice has become muzzled. And I think Chennai submitted to that effect yesterday that our people's voice has become muzzled. And that's something that we have to acknowledge. So in terms of resistance skills, we lack that. We have this culture of just brush it under the rug. Zvinozokunetsa, unozokonzera ningiriki. If someone is abusing you, they're abusing you. And you have to be radical in the action that you take. Okay, so then the next one is one must strengthen the independent social groups and institutions of the oppressed people. I don't know many social groups. I suppose there's football ones and so forth, but I don't know many social groups that would say, okay, these are social groups of the oppressed people. I suppose book club. I mean, like Masi was saying, we've got Women of Resistance book club. You could say that that's a social group. Um, so there's that. But I fail to
Kuno,
pinpoint.
Uncle Jet, are you not here? Social
Oh
media.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Pakosi,
Yeah,
kwa Dandaro, kwa Ningi.
spaces. Yeah, that's true. So
Guys,
we've got these social groups as well. Even on TikTok, I suppose there's also those communities. So yeah, that's true. Then it says one must strengthen the independent social. Yeah, I read that. And then it says one must create a powerful internal resistance force. Now, one of the key things that was very telling, and I saw propaganda start to come out post the July 31st, where people were not willing to admit that this thing could have gone better, but because of lack of communication, lack of organization, people were just headstrong from an internal point of view. They, of course, positioned it as a win for themselves because of how Zanu PF reacted. But the reality is there was just a lot of confusion. One people are saying stay in, one people are saying stay out. But in terms of communications to the people, that was not strong. Both can work in conjunction, and it could be very strategic, and it would work very, very well. However, it could have been better had they been better internal coordination. If you asked one group about the other, immediately they're now calling each other Zanu. Ah, Van we Zanu ah," or the other attack would be, these ones are hero worshipping the South Africans. This just internal fighting that we have is not conducive for where we are trying to go. So people have to put their egos down and say, "Do you know what? We might not agree. We might always not agree as well on strategy, but maybe the fact we don't agree on strategy will work to our benefit. But we won't know that unless we have dialogue with one another. We're too much in our echo chambers, and that doesn't work in our favor because at that point, ZANU PF understands kuti tiri confused, ungoti, oh," you know. So we need to be a bit more united and stop this backbiting. Because to be honest, let's be honest, tinonyeyana. Tinonyeyana us in the opposition, tinonyeyana. That's something that, as much as we can try to brush under the rug or say, "Ini handiite zvakadaro," no, tinoita zvakadaro. So one must create a powerful internal resistance force. And then the last one must develop a wise, grand, strategic plan for liberation and implement it skillfully. The Nepalese, when they toppled their government, vakasiya minister wavo akasina kana bhurugwa kana anything, vachimutandanisa mvura pepe, they had done practices. They practiced, and already they were using a force, and also they made mistakes, right? But for the most part, they were quite strategic because they did tests just to see how the government will respond Vavasonyaso navo navo within a matter of days, and it worked in their favor. So these are the things that, if we were to ask ourselves, have we, when was, can you speak out any wise grand strategic plan for liberation that has ever been attempted? Even if there was it implemented skillfully? No, it wasn't. We need to remove elitism because majority of the people that are leading us are elite. They do not understand the problems of the everyday person. They say they do, but they don't. And this is reason why ethnography as a form of research is very, very powerful, because you get to be in the environment of those people and you get to really understand what they're going through. You live like them, you operate like them. And it's so powerful because you are not just reading online or hearing someone telling you. No, you are experiencing it yourself. And most of those people are not experiencing it themselves. They go visit, campaigner, then they leave. But they don't really get to know and understand. So, as a solution, those four things, as I said, if you want to remove a dictatorship, those four things are what you need, right? And we don't have any of those. And that's what we need to get down. And we need to remove elitism. So, I'll end there.